Hello once again guys, I'm Carl from Game Review HQ.net and today we're going to look into this intriguing free-to-play game, Nosgoth. Nosgoth is a free-to-play third-person competitive shooting game developed by Psyonix and was published by Square Enix. Nosgoth entered open beta on January 21, 2015 and is currently classified as early access on Steam. Nosgoth is a spin-off of the Legacy of Kain series, which is an action-adventure franchise by Crystal Dynamics and was also published by Square Enix. Presumably, fans of the franchise was made when Nosgoth was announced on 2013, and that it was not your typical Legend of Kain game as it stays away from single player and focus on the multiplayer side. So how well is Nosgoth? First, I would like to inform you guys that there is no actual substance for a story here, and the plot is really simple. The Emperor of the Vampires clans collapsed due to Kain using a time-steering device, abandoning his empire, and eventually led to civil war by the remaining vampire clans fighting over who will rule Nosgoth. And they became oblivious enough to not see the rising insurgency of the human who were their slaves for a long time. If you didn't know Kain, he was one of the protagonists of the series and that is all about him in this game. And it seems the connection of this game to the other games in the franchise stop right there, so this game is really just a filler. Enough with the story and the plot, let's take a look at the main menu of the game, and it's a pretty sweet home menu. It gives the patch notes and the upcoming updates and the daily perks you can use in game. Next is the profile. Here you can see your global statistics like your total scores, total damage, total time played, kills, death, assists, win, losses, and your win percentage. Scrolling it down is more of the detailed statistics. You can also choose a character at the side to give you more specific details on how you use each characters. The next one is the armory. Here you can customize your character's weapons, abilities, and even skin. You can also make presets for easy navigation in game just to suit your needs. At the right, you can see the lore or background of the pick character. You can also see here the individual XP that they gathered. Next is the inventory. Well, this is obvious. This is where you can see all your items, so you can filter it for easy navigation, so on and so forth. On the right side, there is an inbox. Usually, those are for announcement from the developers. Next to that is the store. I really am happy that this game is not really pay to win, though you can buy runestones, so you can access the items much easier and much earlier, rather than grinding your way to get them. It gives you a choice if you want to grind or spend your hard-earned cash money for a game. It depends on you. The good thing about this is that the only things you can buy through runestones or real cash money is the skins, packs, executions, and booster. So all is well, and I really salute the developers for that. Now let's go with the play. Here you can see that you can choose if you want a tutorial, online match, private match, or no scam. Tutorial is practically obvious. It's for those who want to practice the basic requirements to play the game. You can also make private match with your friends, which is a good thing if you want private sessions with them and don't want outsiders to get in the way. There is also a Noscam, which shows you your recent game footages, which you can mess around and have a free view if you ever want to create a montage. Let's move on to the online match. There are 3 types of game modes you can choose as of now. Technically it's only 2 since the new recruit is the same as deathmatch mode but with rank 15 or less only. Flashpoint, which is still on beta and you'd only unlock it at rank 5, is basically an objective based match wherein you have to defend one point until you cap it and then go to the other one. The problem here is I didn't get to play it, so I don't know if it's good or not, but I think it is not, since I've searched why no one's playing the mode, and it's because it's so imbalanced and the lack of players in one match made the mode real boring, because on the other games with the same mode there are more people to play with and against, but here, from what I've read, there's always 3 versus 1 or 3 versus 2, and it's never been full most of the time, which is sad, because currently by the time I make these there are only 2 game modes. Fret not though, since the game is constantly being updated with new stuff, and there was a recent announcement for a new game mode a few weeks ago. But then again, Nosgoth has quite a few player base as of now. So yeah, let's talk about the most played game mode in the game. Deathmatch mode. What is Deathmatch mode? It has the same concept like Counter-Strike. There are 2 rounds so you have the chance to play as a human and as a vampire. The first team to get 30 wins or the most wins when the time runs out win the round. And the team will change position. Each round roughly takes 5 minutes to 10 minutes to finish, depending on how good your teammates and how bad your enemies are. Speaking of good teammates and bad enemies, the matchmaking for this game does not make sense at all. Sometimes you are teamed with really good players and your enemies are all new players, and it can happen vice versa. It happens a lot and it's frustrating since I've been in the team of both. Sometimes I'm on the newbie and sometimes I'm on the veterans, which is really infuriating. There is no balance among the ranks, so it really is frustrating if most of the players you are against are veterans. Nosgoth's gameplay depends on team play, and if you have no equipment to communicate to your teammates, then you're probably going to lose since it really is dependent on that. But the gameplay is so simple, so communication is recommended but not really that required. Currently there are 5 maps in the game, but the developers promise to deliver more maps in the future. But 5 maps is already suffice, given that all of it works and functions for the humans, since there are a lot of good spots to stay and defend the area. While for the vampires, there are a lot of places that you can sneak into, which feels really dynamic and interactive and advantageous for an online game like this. Like I said earlier, there are 2 races that you will be playing as in this game. Each of them has unique abilities and unique roles for a match. There's a lot of variety here. For beginners, you are given 2 classes for humans and 2 classes for the vampires, but you can unlock the other classes by grinding your way in ranks, which is a good thing. But then again, you can just buy them off to unlock them now, but if you don't want that, it's okay. Each class has 2 special abilities that it can use. For example, with humans, some create firewalls or shoot bullets that can slow down the vampires, so on and so forth. While on the vampires, you can like avoid getting hit or overall hurt all the humans at once. You can also unlock new abilities by buying it on store with in-game cash, or you can also get some by leveling up your champions. There is a problem on that match though. As I've stated a while ago, the imbalance on this game is obvious and there hasn't been a fix ever since the closed beta. But there's also a problem regarding the imbalance of the 2 races. First of all, humans are always at disadvantage, especially if all of you only have the 2 first unlocked classes, the Hunter and the Alchemist, because they are quite weak, unless you have a good team play. On the other hand, the first 2 classes, the Reaver and the Tyrant, are already strong and deceptive. 3 Tyrants alone can outrun the 5 humans, even if all the players are newbies. Same with 2 Tyrants and 3 Reavers in team, they are really strong. However, the addition of Vanguard on the humans roster, they are like Tyrants on human form and use rage attacks. This balances the game overall, but what if if someone is using that, or majority of the humans use the other classes? Thus, to win a round, you really have to have a good team play and stick together if you are human, and attack intelligently and simultaneously if you are a vampire. Another problem I found is getting stuck on somewhere after I spawn, but this is a rare occasion and I only encountered that on 1 map. But yeah, it's quite frustrating because you have to get killed to get spawned again, and that gives the other team a sure point. The graphics for Nosgoth is a decent one. The maps are well detailed and it functions well for both races. The character models look great, but they are quite non-distinguishable at first if you're in-game because the colors feel a little bit dark and dull, but it adds quality to the atmosphere of the game. The animations are solid, especially for the vampires who do a lot of interaction with the environment, but there are bugs here and there, but it's quite unnoticeable and not game-breaking. The soundtrack in this game is so good and so intense that it really adds the overall feeling more to the game, and I really love the soundtracks. Voice acting is okay but sounds quite generic and characters don't really talk so much, so that's that. How about replayability? Well, 1 match is equivalent to 10 to 20 minute session, which is a pretty short, so playing it for hours would end up you having a lot of experiences gathered since you can play tons of matches in 1 day. However, the lack of game modes make the game a little bit boring after a while. But then again, there's another game mode which is really inactive right now, and the player base is still growing, but it's still small considering there's only 1 mode active. So what are the pros and cons of Nosgoth before I finish this review? Pros are every match is intense and emphasizes on team play. The gameplay is solid and works really well. It's a 4v4 asymmetrical battle. One is a melee, the vampires, and the other a ranged team, the humans. So the 2 races differ from each other greatly. But yeah, if you're still a newbie, then the ratio between vampires and humans will be 3:1, since humans require a lot of teamwork for them to win. There are a variety of classes for each races to choose from, but you have to unlock them, hence, ranking up feels rewarding most of the time. The map function really well in this game. There may be hiccups, but overall it's very good. There are a lot of space to gather and defend for humans, and there are a lot of buildings to hide if you're a vampire. And the best thing about this game is that it's not a pay-to-win game. Developers stuck into its games and players should have more freedom to buy items rather than forcing them to use real cash currency. It's one of the best features of Nosgoth. It is truly a free-to-play game. How about the cons? Well, there are tons of imbalances in the game. First of all, is if you're a newbie, your team will probably lose when you're using the human race since the first 2 classes isn't really that great. But this emphasizes that humans need teamwork to win. Another imbalance issues are the matchmaking system. It doesn't make sense since the game just picks randomly who's in the lobby and put them randomly on their respective team with no sorting depends on ranks or any of some sorting. You just randomly put out, then the game starts, which makes the game really frustrating once you're in a team full of the new players and you're up against veterans. It's a big no. Flashpoint is basically useless as there are no other players playing it. Lastly, the optimization for this game needs to be reworked. I have a very good PC, so I don't quite get the low FPS a lot of people are talking about, but on my laptop it's above the minimum, yet it doesn't reach 30 frames per second, which is frustrating. Even if you search on the internet, some are having problems even though their PC is capable of playing the game. Graphically speaking, the game doesn't even have that great of a graphics to have low frames per second on a decent PC at all. So yeah, those are my cons for the game. It's not much, but it's quite a bit annoying for the cons, especially for the matchmaking system of this game. Overall, Nosgoth is a very decent multiplayer game and it's still on early access. It's normal to have some bugs here and there, and the developers usually adds more stuff and fix the most common bugs. It has a huge potential, but it needs to have more players so the other game modes can be active too. Am I going to recommend Nosgoth? Well, yes. It is a true free-to-play game which does not force you to actually pay for something. That alone can make me recommend the game. Include a different class on both races and you have tons of variety and a lot of strategic plan to proceed in the game. Teamwork is a must, especially if you are humans. Matchmaking should be highly improved and it has to be the first priority because it can be frustrating and boring if all of your enemies are newbies and all of your teammates are veterans. So yeah, this is my review of Nosgoth. I'm Carl, signing off.